you end up with lots of memories that go around that theme. The way you typically do a unit study just breeds a lot of memories and together time and loving learning.
As we have just kind of dissected all the different parts of homeschooling and figured out like, okay, what are all the different ways that we can homeschool our kids? Unit studies is one that a lot of people are maybe familiar with the term unit studies, but they're not exactly sure what that even means. What is a unit study? And it's not something I can speak authoritatively on because I've never really done a unit study. I mean, we do a lot of reading, but I've never used those specifically to school my girls through a unit study. And so I was talking to Melissa a few weeks ago and she said, well, we did unit studies. We used 5 in a row. And I was like, oh, well, yes, you're perfect. Let's bring you on the podcast to talk about it. And so I'm so thankful that you are with me this week to discuss all things unit studies when it comes to homeschooling. So help us first to understand what are the basic concepts of a unit study?
So basically, a unit study is when your content areas. So that would be so your skills areas would be reading and math generally, and
Mhm.
then some people would put handwriting over there. But then your content areas are science, social studies, or history. Your uh, applied language arts can be content area. So what you do for a unit study is you take one main focus, and then your science comes from that main focus, and your social studies comes from that main focus, and then your language arts could come from that main focus. So that focus is kind of your theme
Mhm.
for a week or two or a month or a year, however you decide to do it. And then all of your learning comes from that theme, which brings with it an emotional connection because you end up with lots of memories that go around that theme. The way you typically do a unit study just breeds a lot of memories and together time and loving learning. So sometimes you take a book and all of that will be your theme. The book will be your theme, and your science will come from that book
Okay.
that you read repeatedly with your kids. So that book, it kind of develops. I mean, you're sitting on the couch reading with your kids before bedtime, and then you take your learning from that time. So your science topic would come from something that was in that children's book or picture book, or you could do a chapter book. And then your history would be a topic that you have pulled out of that book that you're reading. And then your language arts, they could be copying a paragraph from the book, and that would be your language arts, or writing a paper about one of the science topics you're learning. Or you could pull it from, say, you wanted to do a unit study on horses. Then you would learn you could learn the history of horses. You would learn the science of maybe their structure, their body structure, and their strength. And then maybe you might learn the history of horses in America, and how have horses changed industry, or how have, you know what I'm saying, things like
Sure.
that. So you can do it on a topic, or you
Okay.
can do it on a book, or a theme. You could do a World War I unit study. You could do horses. You could do a book. You could do a chapter book, and each chapter could be a unit study that you might do for a week or two.
Okay. So it sounds to me like with a unit study, one of the most important things is to ask a lot of questions, right? Like as the parent, if you're teaching that, you would maybe read a book. And we are actually, for our listeners, we're actually going to kind of do a mock unit study with Melissa this week. And so you're going to get to see how she kind of walks us through doing that. And I haven't done it yet, so this is new to me as well. But as I'm listening to you talk about this, it seems that as the parent, you would ask a lot of questions. So you might read a book about something. I think we're going to talk about Make Way for Ducklings, right? So
Mhm.
you would read the story and then you would ask questions to your kids about whatever that story was about. Or, if you do a unit study on the Titanic, you might ask questions about the Titanic and where it was and how did it sink and all the things. So is that what makes it more of a unit study?
Yeah, I think unit studies generally, you're not generally going to have a prepared worksheet
Right.
or a quiz, or so a concept, philosophy of education. One philosophy might be of filling a bucket. So we might think we're supposed to throw a bunch of learning at our kids, and
Mhm.
we want them to memorize things, and that's some people's philosophy, and they choose to educate that way, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But this would be the opposite, or maybe not the complete opposite, but it would be a different philosophy in that it wouldn't necessarily be a list of things we're going to memorize about
Right.
ducks. It would be, what did we're going to learn maybe 10 things about ducks from the different ways we choose to learn, and we might remember 5 of them. And if I have 3 kids, they might all remember 5 different things.
Right.
And that's okay because they've all learned something different that their brain was prepared to learn at that time when we were
Right.
studying about ducks. And so it's not the we're not focused on a specific set of things that will be remembered or, mastered and
Sure.
then forgotten later. And it's not a quiz sort of thing. It's more of a loving learning,
Hmm.
delving in
And
and
experiencing it.
exploring and
Sure.
experiencing. Yeah.